Hey guys, so today I'm going to bring you the first subscriber submitted commentary I'll be doing. I'm sorry it's taken a little bit of a while to come out, but I do have exams at the moment, and also a lot of the replays are coming up with bug splats, which makes it really difficult for me. But in about a week, I'll be back to normal. So let's press play and we'll start this off. Okay, so first thing to look at is going to be the matchup. So we're playing Kha Zix here, is the subscriber against Lissandra. Kha Zix will actually probably lose the lane pre-6 because Lissandra is so poke heavy. If you look as well, Lissandra's bought 2 mana pendants, and so she's going to be able to spam her Q over and over again. There's not really much Kha Zix can do to answer that unless he all-ins her, because Kha Zix can use his W, but because of the harass, he's going to want to use his W to heal himself back up rather than to harass Lissandra. He literally just needs to survive until 6, and that's when he can start making his plays. So I'll just talk about Kha Zix in general. So there are a couple of reasons why he's so strong. Now the first is because his leap, his E, when evolved, is a reset, and that's incredibly strong for team fights. It means that you can go in, assassinate someone, and then jump straight back out, and there's nothing really the enemy team can do. But it does mean that because he's an assassin, you have to kind of bait your team a little bit and wait until an opportunity arises for you to dive in. Obviously you can poke with your W, but your job isn't to go in first, die for free. Your job is to go in after, mop up everyone, and get kills. The second reason is because once he hits 6, his wave clear is incredibly strong. All he has to do is W the minion wave and they'll die, and then he can go and roam top or bottom and snowball everyone. So you don't really pick Kha Zix to win lane necessarily. You'll probably go even in lane, but you pick him so that he can just roam around the map, snowball everyone. And it's one of the reasons why you see a lot of the streamers that play him, they buy mobility boots in solo queue because he's so good at roaming. So I'm just going to talk a little bit more about Lissandra because she's the new champion. I think she's really strong at the moment. Her team fight capability is absolutely incredible, and if you use it in competitive play, it's going to be insane because her ultimate is absolutely crazy, especially when you combine that with the Zhonya's, which is a build I like to use. You get 2 kind of Zhonya's if you want to use that ultimate on yourself, or you can use it on someone else and do a crazy amount of damage. The strength of Lissandra as well is, as I said, her poking. Now, in lane, what Kha Zix needs to do is just to farm as much as possible, get every 1 CS he can, but he can't get CS if it means that he's going to take a ton of harass. So you can see there that Lissandra used her Q on the minion wave, and so he could go in and take those casters because there's literally no threat of Lissandra doing any damage to him apart from basic attacks. And this early in the game, basic attacks do hurt, but they also attract aggro from the minion wave, and minions hurt a lot at early levels. So she'll be taking a lot of the damage back that she does to Kha Zix. So you see she's kind of starting to poke now, and with that slow, it's going to make it really difficult for Kha Zix to farm. The problem really is that Kha Zix can't trade with Lissandra. So his jump has a 21-second cooldown, and Lissandra's E, her teleport, has a 23-second cooldown. So what that means is when you jump on Lissandra, there's probably going to be about a second before she uses her E to get away. That means that by the time your E comes back up, you'll have a second gap to kind of attack her where she can't teleport away. But by the time you jumped on her and done a little bit of damage, she's just going to teleport away and probably harass you with her Q while you retreat. So the second problem is that when you go for CS, she can just root you with her W and then continue to harass you. So there's not really any way for you to safely farm. As you can see, Kha Zix is burning health potions. He's not really doing anything to Lissandra. This isn't really a misplay by him because there's nothing he can really do at the moment. If he sees an opportunity, he could jump onto Lissandra, as I said, and do some damage onto her. But the problem is like that. If he just walks up to her, she's going to W, do some damage, auto attack and Q him, which slows him as well. So it's incredibly difficult to get anything permanent onto Lissandra. So as I said before, his job right now is just to farm, and he's doing a pretty good job. He's 21 CS to 12 of Lissandra, which is really good. In general, it's really easy to farm with melee champions because you have increased AD, whereas with AP you don't. Now this is something I do want to bring up because she just used her E there, and it was a good dodge by Kha Zix, a good read, but she also used her W, which is her root. If you look at her mana, she's got no mana now, and for 23 seconds, as I said before, her E cooldown, she's a sitting duck. What this means is Kha Zix really should have jumped on Lissandra there. He probably could have picked up first blood, or at least blown her flash, because Lissandra had nothing left. Kha Zix had everything left. there were no minions, so he would have got the bonus isolated damage. And pretty much she burnt her cooldowns, and he didn't abuse that. So this is one thing that is really important. So when you're playing AD, obviously trading is really important. But when you're playing mid lane, it's not so much trading auto attacks as it is playing the cooldown game. So what that means is that you realize when your enemy has no cooldowns, and that's when they're weakest. AP or middle champions are strong when they have their cooldowns, but their cooldowns are pretty long by a general standard. So when they're not available, it means they don't have any damage. Their auto attacks don't do much damage. All the damage comes from their cooldowns. So this is the point where you need to abuse that. And he probably could have got a lane advantage. He probably could have forced her back, which means he would have hit 6 first. And means that he would have actually got complete control of the lane. So even though it's a tiny little thing there, these are the kind of things that all add up and can make a serious impact in the game. So he's still doing a really good job at the moment. He's 12 CS ahead, which is unexpected. He should be losing the lane against Lissandra. But at this point, he probably should go back right here because his lane's over the centre mark in the middle. And when it's over the centre mark, it's incredibly difficult for Lissandra, who's on no mana, to get that tower to his wave, to his tower, so he'll miss any minions. If he'd have backed before, it's most likely he would have got to the tower as the wave was reaching it, and he wouldn't have actually missed anything. The problem is that he is crossing the middle mark now to farm, which means that unfortunately the enemy jungler is most likely going to be around, and he's going to gank Kha Zix. So this is the opportunity where he needs to back right here. He's not going to back here, so I'm assuming that Shyvana's going to come for a gank here. Lissandra's going aggressive. Yep, so we got the flash there, and he's going to have to burn his flash to get away. The E was a little bit dodgy, but he didn't really need it in the end. And if Uday had reacted, maybe they could have picked up a kill. But that's pretty much just greed right there. And because the minion wave is now in the center, Lissandra's probably going to be able to get this to his tower, and in which case he's actually going to miss minions. So you can see now it's 41 CS to 38, and that lead that he created earlier has been completely destroyed just because he didn't back at the right time. So it's really important that you recognize when you need to back. If you push the wave like he had, that's a really good time. And if you see now, he's actually missing minions. But the other thing is that he has no pressure on Lissandra, which means she can free farm. Whereas before, she was struggling to pick up everything because she couldn't use her auto attack so much because she was afraid of Kha Zix. Now, obviously, when she's near her tower, she doesn't have to be afraid of Kha Zix, which means that she can just pick up the farm, and now she's caught back up. So it's important to note now he's 6, which means that he really should be roaming. I assume he's going to go top now because Teemo's way overextended, and against a Singed he can just fling. Okay, there's a good ward there. When you're warding as well, you can either just ward over the ridge, or you can ward in that brush, and it gives you vision of Wraiths, which is good. But at this point, he should really be roaming. So you can see his wave is pushed to the tower, and so he's got free roam now of the map pretty much. He doesn't need to be in his lane anymore. He's got a CS lead, but as I said before, it's not really about farming over and over again. Like, you're not playing an Orianna who just sits in lane and farms all day. You're playing a Kha Zix who needs to be aggressive, needs to roam around the map and pick up kills. So if you have a look now, Singed is going back top lane, and he's just based. He's got his Ghost available. So this is a pretty easy lane to gank for. He has a slow, he has his Fling and Ghost. Teemo hasn't got a ward, or he may have a ward in the Tri-Brush, but by that time it would be too late. Lissandra, because we've seen her in lane, we know that she hasn't warded the left side. Possibly Shyvana has, but they would have had to ward before we put ours down because we can see that. You see there's actually a fight at Dragon at the moment. We just go down to that. Now, Kha Zix should be moving here, and he should have moved way earlier than he did. Unfortunately, he hasn't, and he's now moving now, so we're just going to focus back on him. So we can see that Lissandra and Shyvana are down there now. I'm assuming he's going to pick up this kill onto Shyvana, which is good. Now, using ultimate to gap close is very good, but the E here is kind of a misplay by him, and which is going to mean that he probably won't pick up either of these kills. So when you're jumping towards someone, you've just used your gap closer. If they flash or they do anything else, it means that you can't get to them. So if you have a look now, see Leon has flashed away. He hasn't got his E available, so he can't chase her. The other misplay that he does here is he lets Lissandra leave, and Lissandra's worth more gold than Leona. She's also a higher priority target because it's the mid laner, and she was wearing double buffs, which means that he should have really focused her. So when she ran towards the tower, she had no way of escaping. There was no chance of her escaping apart from if they left her alone. Whereas Leona was closer to her tower. If she had flash, which she did, she could just flash towards it and she would have been safe. So the better choice there would have been to take the kill on Lissandra and just take 1 kill. I think what they were trying to do was get 2 kills, but unfortunately the greed there meant that they only picked up 1 onto Shyvana and they left both of them to escape. So this is what I mean about Kha Zix is really good at roaming. You can see the mid lane is actually really even at this point, which it probably should be in farm wise, but Lissandra's got double buffs, which makes her pretty scary. The combined slow on her Q and red buff means that now you can't really trade with her, you can't all in her, because if you mess it up there's absolutely no escaping her. So we could see Shyvana hanging around bot, and Lissandra's vanished off the map. So what should be going through Kha Zix's mind now is, where can I roam? But at the moment he's kind of scared of Lissandra and he's just sitting back, which is fine and there's nothing wrong with this. But now we can see Lissandra running to the right. We saw her go in the brush and he's pinged it there, but the pinging isn't enough in solo queue, so he needed to move straight away. We're going to have a look down there now and we'll see what's actually going on. So Singed just used his teleport and they're now trying to pick a fight. Kha Zix is still mid if you have a look here, so he's gone to decide to farm the wave instead, and Singed just gone a bit too deep, or way too deep. Now obviously that is kind of Singed's fault there, because he chose to go in and he kind of got his team killed. It meant Soraka died as well, but if we have a look, all that Kha Zix has achieved by staying in mid lane is getting about 25 to 30% damage onto the tower. The other problem is that now they're pushing bottom, and if they wanted to, they could probably take this tower at this point. This is one thing that across every elo, but mainly in low elos, people don't understand that taking global objective is actually incredibly useful and is more useful than taking kills. So the tower didn't actually go down bottom, but if you have a look now, 4,000 gold, or 3,500 gold now in the lead for red team, and that's pretty much just from out farming and because of that dragon. So obviously we'll have a look at across the board. Singed has 14 CS, which obviously is abysmal, and he's half the gold, so that's pretty bad obviously, and that's not helping. But if we just have a look, so Shyvana is 10 CS, or not even 10 CS, 8 CS ahead of Udyr, but she's over 1,000 gold ahead. Now that's going to be because of the global pressure that they've put on towards the map. So that dragon has really helped to snowball the advantage. Kha Zix here is still farming mid lane, so he's doing a good job. That exchange before was really good for him, and he pressured Lissandra down, and he can probably dive her now if he plays this correctly. Unfortunately he takes 2 shower shots there, which isn't ideal, and by the time he goes now, he's lost all minions, so that's an extra 2 tower shots from him entering tower range and jumping towards Lissandra, which means that if he'd played that properly, he would have probably survived that if he'd have his flash, which he does. So the best play there would have been to jump onto her, nuke her down, and then flash out. Unfortunately Shyvana was there, so she probably wouldn't have survived anyway, but if he'd made that decision earlier and done it when minions were still in tower range, he probably would have got more out of that. So at this point it's 14 minutes in. The other team are about 2,500 gold ahead, which is okay. This game isn't lost yet at all, but right now he needs to be roaming, so he needs to be looking at the map. So you look top lane, and Teemo is getting a bit crazy. He's totally dominated Singed, which Teemo does beat Singed, but not this hard obviously. So there are 2 options when your lane is losing this hard. So either you go top and you camp and you just repeatedly spoon feed them kills. Singed may not be a bad player, he may just be having a bad day and can't play this matchup. So it's difficult. You either decide that he's probably a good player, and so if you snowball him he can still have an impact in this game, or you leave him alone and instead you go bottom. Going bottom is probably the better option here. Ashe is ahead. She's 5 and 2. She's ahead of Quinn. If they snowball Ashe properly, then she could win them the game. So right here, that was a really good jump by Kha Zix, avoiding the Lissandra ult, or at least getting more distance between him and Shyvana before the ultimate actually went on. So right now, what they need to be doing is taking mid tower. Yes, Kha Zix needs his blue buff, but what's more important, a blue buff or a tower? And the answer is going to be a tower. So if we have a look, and we'll go down to Quinn, she's now just taken that turret down there, and let's have a look back at everyone. So Ashe, her counterpart, is just doing golems. And we'll look at mid lane, and he's just farming Wraith. So they've just got a free tower, which is even more gold. And unfortunately, nothing has really come of it for the other team. So he's starting to roam now, which is good. It's a little bit late, but they can still rescue this game if they get some kills. So Singed just bought Pink Ward, which is a really good idea when you're losing your lane if your team agree to help you. And they're going to try and pick up this kill. Ideally, it's going to go to Singed, because that way he can try and get back in this game. And it does go to Singed, so that's good. Now, the other thing is, again, you've got 2 bottom lane, okay? And you have Quinn in the mid lane pushing. So you don't need 2 bottom to push the wave out if the AD carry isn't there. So in that case, Ashe should have been bottom. She should have been farming the wave, and Soraka should have been coming mid to help relieve the pressure. This time it didn't matter, but imagine if Lissandra was there with Quinn, they would have been able to take, or at least do a lot of damage to the tower. So this is a good idea now. They're grouping mid. They are stronger than the other team. Even though the gold is different, they have core items. So we'll have a look at Kha Zix. He's picked up his Hex Drinker, which is a good item against the enemy team because the majority of them do magic damage, so we're going to proc it. Ashe has got her Infinity Edge, which is a really important buy. Unfortunately, they don't really have a tank at this point, which is one of the reasons why they're in such a kind of a trouble. So Udyr has gone for the damage spirit item, the Elder Lizard, which is okay, and he does benefit from it, but unfortunately it means that their team doesn't really have a tank. So Kha Zix is going to go top here and try and pick up a kill on Teemo. Now, if you see there, he kind of used his jump again to engage. Your jump does not do that much damage. You need to save it for when you need it. So the graphics are a little bit bugged here, but he hits, an Ashe arrow hits him there. Udyr comes top as well, but Dragon's up. So it's kind of a mistake by Udyr. There's no reason for them to be top lane. He wasn't needed for the kill. And this is the problem now, because Ashe arrow is really important for her. It snowballs the advantage even harder in a team fight because she can isolate someone. It's an engage mechanism as well. And now Kha Zix is in base. So we'll have a look. I'm just going to pause it here because this is really important, and this is probably where the game is going to be decided. So I'm going to play it in slow motion actually instead. So we can see here, you've got it's 3-on-3. Kha Zix is in base, and Singed actually used his teleport to get back top lane. So because they're chasing Quinn and Leona, they've left Ashe completely isolated, who is the only one who does damage in this 3 combo. Against Lissandra, Ashe has got no mana either, so she can't even volley. And it means that Ashe is completely vulnerable. She's left all on her own. There's nothing for her to do. And because Lissandra is so slippery, she may even get away here. Kha Zix is still in base, so he took a little while to buy, which isn't going to cost them the fight. But if you have a look now, so Quinn can mop these 2 kills up easily and pick up a triple kill, which is going to completely sway the game. So we're going to speed up and see if she actually does pick up a triple kill. And I'm assuming yes, she does. So at this point, it's really unfortunate because while it was a good play in a way to go top and to pick up a kill on Teemo, they used Ashe arrow, they used Kha Zix's time up top, and by the time he'd based and come back to Dragon, even though they did pick up the Dragon, 3 of them died for it because he wasn't available to help the team. Singed also should not have teleported top, which was a bad mistake by him. But if you see now, he's low on health. He should just base here, which he's going to have to now after Teemo comes in. But Shyvana wasn't even in that Dragon fight, and they lost it 3v3 because Kha Zix had gone top and Sinister died. So Shyvana got the tower top. They then rotated and got the tower mid because everyone was dead and Kha Zix was low. What would have been better was if Kha Zix hadn't jumped into Leona and Quinn and had just cleared the wave with his W, which is possible because his W is so potent at this level. So I'm just going to pause this here and do it again. So see now, Ashe has already died, and he probably could have mopped up at least one kill here if he played this correctly. So we have a look, and he just jumps straight into all three of them. Now Kha Zix is an assassin. He's very squishy. He doesn't have any health. If you look at his items, he's got a Hex Drink and a BF Sword, which is a lot of damage, but is not a lot of health or sustain. So what he should have done is just poked with his W. Your W is extremely strong, and it's so much damage that you just need to stay on the edge of the fights, poke with your W, wait till they're low, and then jump in. So he could have just poked Teemo, got him low, and then he would have been able to jump in, pick up the kill on him, and then jump out again. So they've made the right choice here in ignoring Leona and going for the other two, but unfortunately they can't pick anything up. So if we have a look now, there are 3 towers, and they have 3 towers, and the blue team only have 1. So the gold lead has increased to 5,000. The dragon kind of helped to offset that, but now because of the leading global objectives, it's getting particularly dangerous. Now I'm going to pause it here because this is where teams kind of start to lose the game, and it snowballs so hard that it's a lost, even when at this point the game is completely salvageable. So if we just have a look, the enemy team was mid lane, okay? So they were like right here. Okay, now what's the first thing you're going to look to do as an enemy team? If there are no objectives around the map, you don't have vision on everyone, so you don't want to push harder, you're probably going to go to the objectives. So the first one they're going to go for is blue buff, and there are no wards here or here, which means that unfortunately Kha Zix is completely vulnerable. Now there are 2 options he can really do here, so I'm going to press play again, and we'll see what actually happens. But most likely he's going to get ganked here, in which case he's going to die. Yep, so he gets the blue buff, but they completely surround him. This is something you can't really do when you're against a Lissandra and Leona. When you have heavy CC, you need to have vision at all times. One thing, even though Kha Zix has played reasonably well this game, and definitely if his team were as capable as him, they would have probably won this game, but he does need to buy some more wards. So there were no wards. If you want the blue buff, it's your responsibility to ward for it and make sure that you don't get killed while you're doing it. Or the other way of doing it is to ask your team to come with you and stand in the brush, or you can stand in the brush and do the blue buff. Now, by the way that Lissandra came over, it most likely means that that was actually warded. So this is a really good kill on Quinn and shows you why the game isn't over. Very good jump there to dodge the Leona ultimate. His Kha Zix timer on his jump actually isn't enough to dodge that, so that was preemptively jumped, which is really good. Now, as I was saying, it's probably warded in blue buff, which unfortunately, obviously Kha Zix didn't know. But he either needs to ward for it or stand in the brush, and then as soon as the enemy team came over, he would just instantly jump away, and he may have had enough reaction time to get away. So as I was saying, this is the reason why Kha Zix is so good. He's now 4-2. His team are doing reasonably well, but obviously globally he's still 4,000 gold behind. Partially that's going to be because Teemo's top just pushing like a madman, and everyone is kind of caught up on farm. Lissandra's got a lot of help mid lane, and everyone's kind of grouped, so the CS advantage has gone a little bit in her favour, but there's nothing they can really do. The enemy they really need some wards now, because look at the bottom of the map, you can see 3 wards there, but they're pretty useless. The enemy team don't have any objectives down the bottom of the map, so there's no reason for them to be there, which means that 1 ward maybe to see if someone's out of position, that's great, but there's no need for 3 to cover their enemy jungle. You can ward the entrances to the jungle, and then if you see them come in, quickly drop another ward to cover yourself, but there's no need to ward that heavily in an area. More importantly, it'd be to ward Baron right now, because that's the biggest threat. However, Shyvana, Quints built a Last Whisper and a Blade of the Ruined King, which is absolutely incredible at shredding Baron, and they also have 2 Wits End on their team, which is incredible at shredding Baron as well, because of the attack speed and the magic damage on hit. So you can see Leona's on the map, and they have a vague idea of where the team is. And this is probably a good time to fight. So Udai's actually going to go back, which is a little bit of a mistake I feel by him. But if you see an enemy split pushing, the best way to stop them and to punish them is going to be to fight. So you can see there, Lissandra just used her claw to farm the wave. Now if I was this Ashe, and if this was one of my games at diamond level, what would have happened is Ashe would have instantly arrowed onto Lissandra, and they would have killed her straight away because she's just used her escape. She's got nothing left and she's sitting in the middle of nowhere. Now the problem is, at this point, we don't really have any vision on blue team, and so this game is starting to snowball. You can see the advantage is now 5,000, 5,500 because the enemy team just took Drake again for free. Singed actually has his teleport and Teemo's top, so there's no reason not to fight a Baron fight because you can make it 5v4. This is a little bit of a questionable play by, or very questionable play by Singed. So he teleports in when there isn't a fight, and he's just going to randomly ghost and run at the enemy team. So the engagement mechanism, I'm going to pause it here to talk about this very quickly because this team fight is most likely going to decide the game. So the engage mechanism for this team is Ashe's arrow. There's nothing else on their team that is really good apart from the ghost and fling on Singed, but that only really works if you're very close to the team because you have Teemo shrooms, you have Lissandra's slow, which is incredibly strong against Singed. And so at this point, they should be just backing out. If you look there, 6,000 gold behind. And I think the mistake they make at this point is they think they're further ahead than they actually are. So Ashe is pretty strong. But if you have a look, we'll have a look at the global gold quickly. And you'll see that actually she's only 1,000 gold ahead of Quinn, which is not a huge margin. Kha Zix has done a good job of staying in the game, but is still 900 gold behind. And even the biggest difference, really, the most notable, is going to be Shyvana, who is 3,000 gold ahead of Udai. So her items mean that she does a lot more damage. She's a lot tankier than Udai. She's got 2 levels on him as well. And so when you're behind, the worst thing you can do is chase and fight. So you need to wait for the enemy team to try and fight you, or at least get an even clean engage with an Ashe arrow. So I'm going to press play again here now. But if they continue to chase, this is where they're going to probably lose this team fight because of the amount of kite that the enemy team have. So we're going to see that Kha Zix is going to run towards Quinn, which is the right move, and they're going to see Teemo. Now this is the mistake that is going to really cost them the game, I think, here. So Teemo's going to flash, and at this point, everyone should turn around because the enemy team is killing Soraka. The enemy team is behind them, if you have a look, all of them, and they've separated Teemo from the team, which makes this fight a 4-on-5 for quite a while because Teemo won't be in it. So Lissandra gets a great ultimate onto Ashe, which means she absolutely melts. Kha Zix does manage to pick up the kill onto Teemo, which is good here, but unfortunately they're going to completely lose the fight. So the reason they lost that fight was purely because they chased so hard. Now I believe here they actually surrender, but looking at the time, in my opinion, the game isn't over at this point. The Ashe is extremely fed, and so is Kha Zix. They just played that engagement really badly. So I hope you learned something from this commentary. It's a little bit different from my usual one, and I just wanted to kind of highlight the mistakes that he was making. Just going to go and say that he isn't the reason his team lost this game, but there was definitely more that he could have done to win it, which is pretty much how the mentality you need to have in solo queue. So it's not about whether you've done something terrible that throws the game, it's how much you've done to make sure that you've earned that victory. So if you want to leave any feedback for me and comments, that'll be fantastic. Obviously try and improve on this one. This is the first one, so it's a little bit different from commenting on my own games where I can explain my thought process, but hopefully you found it helpful. Obviously remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you next time.